Provide leadership and direction for your own area of responsibility is Unit 12, which is part of the SCQF Level 8 Diploma in Project Management awarded by EAL. This video we're going to go through the unit and look at how you can put together evidence for this unit. In the unit summary, it explains that great leaders have the ability to recognise their strengths and weaknesses and to reflect on them to ensure that they continuously improve their performance. Leaders need to be able to set objectives and direction for the project team and to communicate effectively to achieve project success. This unit is at SCQF Level 8 and there are 6 credit values for completing this unit. There are 4 learning outcomes for this unit. The first is being able to lead in your own area of responsibility. The second is being able to provide direction and set objectives in your own area of responsibility. The third is being able to communicate the direction for your own area of responsibility and collect feedback to inform improvement. And the fourth is being able to assess your own leadership performance. I would advise that best practice for this unit would be to focus on other units. Write holistic statements based on tasks where you are providing leadership, and this will naturally fall into this unit. So you'll naturally be able to map that evidence into this unit and cover a lot of this off, and this will become clearer as we go through the outcomes and the criteria for this unit. To give you an example, let's say you are doing the schedule management unit, and as part of that you're writing a holistic statement where you're issuing out activities which have been identified in the schedule plan. That is you providing leadership because you're assigning those activities to colleagues or to stakeholders to complete. You're monitoring them and you're updating them. So that is, in a sense, you performing leadership activities, and you'll find that a lot of that will then be able to map into this unit. So best practice would be to actually complete this unit at the end of your portfolio, really, and to ideally maximise opportunities to holistically assess evidence which is already been created based on tasks, and to put it into this unit as long as those tasks are activities where you are providing leadership. I would also say for this unit to take note that you do not have to be in a leadership, a management or a team leader role to complete this unit. You could be merely coordinating these activities, sending out work plans, dates, and responsibilities to people. Even if you're doing it more in terms of a coordination role, that is also fine to be able to complete this unit. Let's start with the first outcome, criteria 1.1, identify your own strengths and ability to lead in a leadership role. So this should be reflective, and this should be a reflective account of you identifying your strengths to perform in a leadership role. So performance task, reflective account of a scenario where you have provided leadership during which you were able to identify on your strengths. What was the task? What was your strengths in being able to lead the team, and how did you identify these strengths? Product evidence could be a leadership SWOT analysis. That stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And this is where you're outlining your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats for you performing a leadership role. And if you've completed that, that could be used as product evidence for this criteria. You could also use your Belbin questionnaire or any other leadership management styles questionnaire. That could be useful. There's different ones, not just Belbin, which you could complete and use as product evidence. Character analysis could be used, and also a job description which outlines your duties and responsibilities, especially if your duties and responsibilities involve managing or leading tasks and activities. 1.2, evaluate your strengths within your own area of responsibility. This one is not so much on your leadership, but within your own area of responsibility. That essentially means the duties and responsibilities which are outlined in your job description. That is your own area of responsibility. So for this one, you want to reflect and identify what your strengths are to perform your day-to-day role. So tell me about a time where you have evaluated your strengths within your own area of responsibility, and this could tie into a time where you've completed a task, you've completed an activity which is part of your job description, and when you're doing that you can reflect on your strengths in being able to perform that tasks. You should come to a judgment on how well you performed on a task. It doesn't have to be a leadership task, it could just be part of your day-to-day responsibilities. What was the task? What are your responsibilities? What are your strengths? And how did you identify and evaluate your strengths? Product evidence could be a personal SWOT analysis, rather than having a SWOT analysis on your leadership styles, just on your day-to-day responsibilities and duties. Belbin character analysis, a learning styles questionnaire. That is a questionnaire where you can identify the learning styles which work best for you. You could also use a work plan. A work plan comes up in a number of criteria for this unit. Essentially what a work plan is a tracker that tracks activities. Simplest form that could be an Excel spreadsheet where the first column is activity name or description, start dates, end dates, duration, who's responsible, statuses, potentially even RAG statuses. That's the simplest form. You might find, depending on your processes, it could be a SharePoint site, it could be a tool on your project management software, but essentially it tracks activities. And if you are using a work plan, that's part of your day-to-day responsibilities, you could use that as product evidence for this unit. Moving on to the second outcome, 2.1, outline direction for your own area of responsibility. Again, your own area of responsibility is your day-to-day tasks, duties, responsibilities, which are outlined in your job description. So for this, reflect on the outline of your own area of responsibility. Give a full and comprehensive review of your tasks and responsibilities and where these fit into the wider team and then the wider organisation. Back this up with product evidence. This could be a situation where you are working on a task which is outlined in your job description, responsibilities and duties. So rather than have just a sort of knowledge base, this is my job description, try and tie it into a task or an activity that you've completed, which is part of your responsibility, or in some way being able to outline your responsibilities. Maybe a good situation would be to write a reflective statement on a one-to-one meeting with your manager or some form of review with your manager where you're discussing your job role, your responsibility, where it's going to move to in the next 6 months and how you're going to get there. Product evidence would be your job description, as that outlines your area of responsibility. You could reference your key performance indicators for your role or any targets if you've got targets for your role, and your monthly one-to-one outcomes with your manager. 2.2, implement objectives with colleagues that align with those of the organisation. So this is where you are assigning tasks, delegating tasks or coordinating tasks and activities with colleagues that align with those of your organisation. If you find that your organisational goals are too vague, then you could potentially use your team goals as well. So what are your team goals, and those activities that you're aligning should align with the goals of your team. So performance tasks reflect a time you have discussed, agreed, allocated and or completed tasks with co-workers, which allows you to meet your organisation's objectives. What was the task? Who was a colleague? What were the objectives? And what is the wider objective of the organisation? And how do these objectives you gave your colleague align with these wider organisational objectives? Product evidence could be any document which involves allocating these activities to people, which could include communication, so an email, instant message. It could also include a work tracker or any details about the activity which has been, or objectives which has been sent to your colleagues. And it could also include management objectives for staff as well. Moving on to the third outcome, 3.1, is communicate the agreed direction to individuals within your own area of responsibility. Communicate, so this is specific about communication, and therefore product evidence should be digital communication, letter or meetings of minutes. So it's quite easy to get product evidence for this criteria. Communicating the agreed direction to individuals within your own area of responsibility, that is where you're assigning tasks. So sort of similar to the last one there. This is really specific to you assigning tasks to other people, and you're communicating those tasks to them. So how did you communicate to them? This is quite easy to put into a holistic statement that would link in with other units. So for example, if you're assigning schedule activities to people, that's part of the statement, holistic statement, part of the schedule unit. Quite easy to add this in. Tell me about a time where you've had to lead a team or a task where you took the lead. How did you communicate with colleagues about organising or performing a task, especially if you're leading the task? How did you agree the direction? Who is within your area of responsibility? This may be internal, external, individual, or individuals in different teams or higher up the organisation chart. Could be anyone really. Doesn't have to be internal, could be external, could be a freelancer, could be a supplier. If you're responsible for coordinating them, then that fits within this criteria. How did you communicate the agreed direction to each of these individuals, and what was their reaction? What method did you use, and did you have to use any tact to do this? Product evidence, as already mentioned, would be some form of communication. 3.2, collect feedback to inform your improvement. It says it's simply that you are receiving feedback from others to inform improvement, where you have communicate, particularly around the communication, because this outcome 3 is about communicating tasks and activities to colleagues. So any sort of feedback you've got from your colleague when you've allocated them a task and you've taken that on board. So tell me about a time where you have had to lead a team or a task where you took the lead. How did you collect feedback about your leadership? Who provided you with this feedback? This can come from different people, including your assessor, line manager, other members of your team, and members of other teams. What was this feedback and how did you take this on board and improve? This could also potentially be part of your sort of formal review process, so monthly one-to-ones, appraisals, probation reviews, that sort of thing. But probably for this one, because it is part of outcome 3 about communication, it might be best to use a situation where you've communicated with people and you're getting feedback on your communication. Product evidence for this could be your review sheet, personal development plan, an appraisal, documents around your probation review, your monthly one-to-ones, communication from a colleague where they'll provide you with feedback that way, meetings of any minutes where a work plan was discussed or feedback on your communication was discussed. 4.1, assess feedback on your leadership performance. So this is about you assessing feedback which you received on your leadership performance. Quite straightforward. Tell me about a time where you've led a team and assess and evaluate your leadership performance. How did you receive the feedback and who did you receive it from? What was the task and what was the feedback about? What would you have done differently? What did you do well and what was the result? Product evidence would be communication. So if you've received this feedback via an email or a letter, you can use that. A feedback report, it might be something that's documented in your appraisal or a monthly one-to-one as well. And if that's the case, then those documents can be used as product evidence. 4.2, evaluate your leadership performance. This is not so much the other one's about your feedback. This is you just evaluating and reflecting on your own performance, leading, managing or coordinating activities. So come to your own judgment on a task or a situation where you have provided leadership. Reflect on a time where you have led a team. What did your team achieve? What did your leadership contribute towards this? Was your leadership effective? What would you have done differently? Analyse the feedback you reflected on in the previous criteria. Product evidence would be communication, such as digital communication, emails, instant messages, or a letter. Could be a feedback report, appraisal, or a one-to-one document where your leadership performance has been discussed and evaluated. Thanks for listening, and hopefully that helps you gather evidence and put together your portfolio for this unit.